Greetings, mortals, and welcome back to Octoly Forgets to Shave for another day. It gets worse every day.
I'll fix it. Don't worry. We'll balance it out. Don't even worry about it. Hey, also, I'm not late. You're late. Let's see here. We've got... It's 9:02, which is not late. My stream start time is 9 o'clock, which, as we all know, is a couple minutes before 9:02. Right? I think that's clear for everybody. It doesn't look like there's a new update, so we should be set. And wow, that eye color is weird. Torchlight, huh? Yeah, I guess I better start the game. All right, we're gonna stop looking into my eyes. I find it very strange every time I see someone with blue eyes or green eyes or any color of eyes that isn't brown. I live in Singapore. I don't see that shit very often, and it throws me off every time I see my family. And I don't look at myself in the mirror often enough to notice. Let's see here. As you can see, I don't look at myself in the mirror very frequently. Not as frequently as I'm supposed to look. Also, hey, live forever and ever. Let's get in game so we can do our our torchlight. And for only that reason. We don't need to be in game for any other reason. That's the only reason. Why else would we need to be in the game? All right, we've cast torchlight. Y'all didn't see it. I'll recast it since y'all didn't see it because I forgot to switch the thing over. You probably heard it, but you didn't see it probably. Okay, so, and by probably I mean definitely, because I can see on my second monitor how it's all set up. I'm not hyper, you're hyper. Alright, so when last we left off, we just finished up Harmondale. We managed to clear the area without losing any of our guards, because while the typical strategies that I would utilize really won't work with the setup here, it doesn't matter because the enemies are so beefy compared to their damage output that I was able to just hop in and out of dungeons to reset the HP on the guards, and we managed to clear the area. I was surprised, actually. Okay. Slightly dehydrated. The reason that I'm late is because I forgot to buy soda in a timely manner, which meant that I didn't have it. And now, I'm going to check something quick, because I don't think this will work, but I'm going to check it anyway. What day is it today? It's Monday again. Why is it always Monday? Okay. What was I looking for? Yes. I want to check if I can use this shrine. If I can use this shrine, it doesn't really impact things that much. Alright. I cannot. So, we've hit the obelisk. So, let's head to Erathia. Erathia is west of me? I think north of me is Tolarian Forest. And I'm pretty sure that only Tolarian Forest and Erathia have connection points here. So it should be west, because that's where the other road goes. No, wait, no, there's also Barrow Downs to the south. Okay, so this is Erathia. That's great. What is east of me? Is east of me just a different route to Tolarian Forest? Because south is Barrow Downs. Let's find out. I'm gonna fly over there. Is this weird? Torchlight, really? Huh. Let's see. So today, we're going to be completing a quest that we don't have access to yet, and won't have access to for a very long time. This will mean crashing a fairly high-level dungeon. I'm tempted to do it first, but I'm not going to. The reason I'm tempted to do it first is because it'll be more fun to do it first. Okay, it is 7 days to Tolaria. That's what I figured it would be. But the for Might Magic 7, sometimes routes have basically like the normal route, and then there's another route that if you go off a different side of the map, it'll have a longer route to get to the same place. So north and east both go to Teleria. Let's see here. So yes, we're going to Arathia. We have a big dungeon. It's tempting to do the big dungeon first. However, because of the way the experience thing works... Oh, I didn't get food. Okay, well, that's probably fine. Because of the way that the experience works, I would prefer to get the... to cast Preservation. That's not it. Alright. I also need Fly, so I should have... I suboptimally allocated my uses there, but that's okay. Right. So the way that the experience works makes me want to do it a different route, because I don't know mathematically if it makes a difference, and it probably doesn't. But because I think the way the function works is one that is simple enough that it will even out no matter what, because it's all multiplicative. I think it's all multiplicative. I don't think it'll cause problems. But just in case, I want to go to the higher level dungeon last, so that I'm not like blowing ahead of the levels of everything else first and losing out on EXP. So, am I going to do that? Or am I just going to go straight into that fucking castle? I think I'm going to go straight into that fucking castle. I don't fucking care. Ooh, I might get a little less experience. Fuck it. I don't care. We're going to the fucking castle. I don't give a shit. You think I give a shit? No, we need to get a painting for a person that we haven't talked to yet. And that is the most important thing on our agenda today and every day. This is the most important thing that we will ever do. Alright, so I don't have any food. We are not doing this without any saves. So give me a second. We need to go to the inn and grab some food because we're not doing... Okay. Priorities have shifted slightly, okay? First priority, Archimage. I have that in my card. Okay, so I need to have it in my inventory. Where is it? It's not... the Deck of Fate has a different model, right? Can you buy self-magics on DWI? What is DWI? Daggerwood Island. Is the answer to that no, actually? I remember having problems with self-magics in Daggerwood, right? At the beginning of the run, I think I was running into some problem tied in with self-magic, but I don't remember exactly what it was. Was it that the guild is specifically an elemental guild? Okay. We're looking for our deck. There it is. Found it. All right. Come in. Save the game. Come in. Okay, so what kind of win are we going for here? We have very few resources. I'm going to go with this first, and GG. I think I am going to do... I have exactly enough to do a werewolf, which puts me in a vulnerable position. Does it put me in a more vulnerable position? If I use this 8... I get +3 wall and 10 damage, and the werewolf does 9 damage. So we're actually going to use dwarves and follow it up with goblin mob. Look at this tryhard over here. Okay, so... I want to use the phase jewel if I can, but I'm probably not going to get an opportunity to. My tower is always going to be greater than their wall, probably. Though maybe not. I'm actually tempted to do this. I don't have anything that uses bricks right now, so Query's help is not as bad as you'd think. I think I am actually going to use Lightning Shard. +6 recruits, +6 wall. If dungeon less than enemy dungeon, get +1 dungeon. Okay, this is huge for me. This is exactly what I needed. And now we need to figure out the calculation here. We have 9 + 6. That's lethal if they don't... Okay. Look at this triad over here. Okay. Okie dokie. So what was I doing? Right. We're filling our packs, and now the secondary thing that we have going for us, whoops, is grabbing paintings, because that's like the most important thing that we could be doing right now is grabbing a painting for some reason. No biggie. Should be backside of the end. The painting stealing thing? No, the painting stealing thing is in Tatalia. Backside of the... What's on the backside of the end? Is there a thing on the backside of the end? Oh god, you're gonna follow me? I forgot about that. Well, you know, that's fine. What's the worst that could happen? Oh, wait, there's a self-magic guild on the backside of the inn in Daggerwound? Did I just not find that place? Or did I find it and I'm forgetting? Okay, so we have how many dungeons to complete? We have this one, we have this one. We can't do this one. Do I want to get the stat boost before I do this? I do, but I'm not going to because I think that that's... No, we will actually get it. Let's do a tiny bit of optimization here. Also, we have Fort Riverstride that we need to do. So we need to do Fort Riverstride. We need to do this shrine here, and we need... So we have 3 dungeons we can actually complete. Test. We will loot the chests here, because we're already here. I'm not ignoring the thing that I just said. I'm not completely disrespecting my whole narrative. That's not what's happening. And we're gonna grab this. Okay. So now that I'm not gonna have to feel bad if basically, like, I've now kind of maximized a decent portion of, like, the things that pop into my head as things to optimize before going in here, other than becoming more powerful generically. So now that I've done that, I feel better about just jumping in here and going, hey, you know, if it doesn't work out, then it sucks to be me. As opposed to, if it doesn't work out, ooh, hello. So these are hitting for how much? So the Master of the Sword hit for about 20k. And we need to find a place that will work well for our purposes. Tables! Oh, they didn't... Oh, they're not going up. Why aren't they coming after me? Wait, what? How?
Useless.
I don't think I've ever seen this before. Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay. It happened eventually. Alright, I think this table is probably not big enough. So we're gonna need to do better than just standing on a table in the middle of that room. There should be a path up in the left side that I might be able to use. And I will use invisibility if I ended up having to do this, but I don't know that I'm going to end up having to, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. Let's see here. It is tempting to like leave so that we have a preset world state. Ooh, this is a big table, actually. So the goal right now is to get to here and on top of this table. If we can get on top of that table, I feel like there's a decent shot. The question is whether we can realistically get there before we get murked by the guards. I don't want to aggro the guards by attacking someone. And so I think what I did previously was I jumped to about this location. I'll use invisibility to get there if I have to, but for now I'm not sure that I have to. Okay, so that's interesting. If I just hop over this carpet, it skips the hostile trigger. So for now, okay, I can stand behind the table, and then it's only people who leak that are a problem for me, but unfortunately they're going to leak pretty readily. So I don't think this is going to end well for me. This is a summoner fighter. Let's try to burn through it. But weirdly enough, I think they're in like a weird, confusing state where they think they can hit me, but they can't. So some of these haven't actually leaked. They just look like they've leaked. This hasn't leaked. There's someone else hitting me from behind, I think. So the leaks there are probably going to make it so that that doesn't work. I don't have enough DPS to make that location work. I say that. We might be able to make it work. Let's try this one more time. Maybe more than one more time. We'll find out. The other thing we can do, we can use these staircases to useful effect. Alright, so, and we had a boss there. I don't know if that really made a big difference. At the very least, it did absorb a bunch of our damage. So, there's the possibility that coming over here will work better. That thing thinks it can hit me, but I don't think it can. It might be able to. That's a guard. This is highly important that we kill this first. All those things think they can hit me and can't. Okay. As long as we don't have any leaks, we should be golden. Okay, we got that going pretty smooth, pretty fast. These are just... This is a great location, it turns out. Like, way better than I expected. Okay, so this is proof of concept. So they're going to leak. How many are going to leak? Is it going to be too many? It might be too many. And it looks like we're fine, actually. Even when they're leaking, they're still not actually able to pass this space. So they seem to be, like, getting trapped anyway. So this one is in range, almost certainly. This one is definitely in range. Come on. We got to get through just like a couple little ones, a couple initiates. Is all we need. Do we have anybody hitting me from behind? No. They're all attacking from this side, which means that since they're all hitting from this side, I'll know which ones have leaked. It's a beautiful thing. It's a truly beautiful thing when a plan comes together. Okay.
Great. I don't
And
know.
that came together real fast, too.
Now this will do.
You know? Okay. The stuff that I have is too good to worry about it. What just happened? Is it 3? It's 3 o'clock. Oh, right! We haven't rested. Could you imagine how shitty it would be if I had just died there? Because... Wait, why am I immediately running into a problem with 3 o'clock? Is it because I didn't have food when I traveled? I think it's because I didn't have food when I traveled. That's a concern. Okay, that's a scouring pearl, which is a very good item to have. Now, it looks like we have one more of these that I can probably just fight. I'm not positive I can just fight it. I should be able to, right? Like, it's just one enemy. Look at the damage it just did. As I say, it's just one enemy. Okay, so it's just one fairly late game enemy that's bolstered by 200 levels. And we're in the green. So we have the ability to save. We've cleared out this first room, which gives us a safe point to save in. We have 9 food left, so we can do 4 more saves, I believe. And... Boop. Alright, so we're just going to do standard corner play here. Okay, make this happen. You know, this has actually gone smoother than I expected. I expected the entry to be rougher than this. Luckily, I remembered this place being useful at some point in the past. Okay, we got a boss that's venomous. Ooh, it's in a bad position. Ooh, that's real bad. A single hit from that thing was sufficient to drop me below the point that I can use shared life to bring myself back up. That was from full HP. Let's see how much damage it does. Actually, I can't check right now because I have to get a line of sight for that, and I'm afraid that I'm going to get myself hit again. We'll check it once I kill it. It's so terrifying. Alright, let's take a look. Its body is now visible. So this does 70,000 to 85,000 damage after mitigation. Holy shit. Party members are named after characters. Some of them are characters from my books. And others are characters from a manuscript, and others are characters that are not from either yet, but which have a place in the world setting. Now, I do say that they're from my books. They're not initially from my books. They're various characters that I've come up with over the years that I filled my books with. So Severia is a character from. She's in the second book and onward. Cortal is not in the books yet. Cortal is established later than this. And Silria starts in fourth book, I believe, and so does Ashkor. Ashkor and Silria are established in the same book. And yeah, the books are available. I believe I have them linked on the Twitch page. So I believe that they're visible there. I wrote them many years ago. I wrote them like in my early 20s. And part of the reason that I actually started up the whole Twitch thing was actually just as like promotion for the books. And then I ended up being really bad at promotion and also really bad at doing the Twitch thing. So that didn't really go anywhere. But I still have the, like, I don't know, about 20% of the manuscript for the next book in the series. Bear in mind, the books are like novellas. So the between the four of them, it's probably the length of like a. I don't remember how many pages each of them is. I would say probably about the length of like, one novel. The fourth is way longer than the others. Once I got my stride under me, like my primary function with writing the initial book was just getting something finished, right? One of the most important aspects of like, doing a project is just doing a project. It had initially started as kind of like a standalone like horror novella, but I had done sufficient world building to prep for it that I can't do another save already, can I? I don't think I can justify doing another save already. Well, no, I did just kill a boss. I should probably save after every boss that I kill. I think that makes a degree of sense. We're going to save this under dungeon again. And it does cost 2. So we do have 3 more saves available. We should be fine. But yeah, the genre shifts a bit between the stories. It starts out as mostly paranormal horror and transitions into... it transitions into something else eventually. And I'm not going to say when, because some people might not want to know. But it begins as mostly paranormal. One of the things that I've realized over the years is that I really like fantasy, but I actually prefer. Well, I'm every time I write something or tell a story, it just becomes like horror. Because I like scaring people more than I like anything else, I guess. So like when I'm DMing, my DMing is always like scaring the shit out of my players for fun and profit. I guess not profit, but for fun. For the lulz, one might say. But yes, that was always a fun, like... No, I just play straight D&D. It's just that I've played historically with people who don't have a lot of preconceived notion about what D&D is, and don't know what they're doing, right? So typically my players are not very experienced with D&D, and as a result of that, there's this weird thing that happens when you're in, like, specific types of, like, gaming,
Yes.
like, things where the rules of adventuring are objectively kind of insane, right? So, like, if you ask a normal person, like, oh, you found yourself in, dropped into some horrifying, like, temple full of giant spiders, right? An adventurer will try to figure out what's going on. Any human being on Earth is going to go, oh shit, where is the closest thing that I can turn into an exit? I'm going to dig myself back out of the hole. I'm going to lock myself in this room and dig my way straight up. That's what I'm going to... That's what I'm going to do. You expect me to go into the temple? No, that's not happening. That's an insane thing to do. No, I refuse. So one of the things about it is, part of it is my DM style, right? So my DM style comes into play because, the way that I talk about things, I do tend to make things a bit, like, spookier than they have to be. And I do have setups that are, oh, I'm going to just drop you into a spider temple and expect you to investigate it because you're there, because I locked the door out. That's what I think to do. The problem is that my players are too smart for that. So what they'll say is, oh, this door is locked. This giant, like, stone, like, huge, like, stone door is locked, right? Okay. Can I use the pickaxe that I have because I was a miner in my background, and that I carry around this pickaxe? We've established that I have it. Can I use this pickaxe not to, like, cut through the door, but to just cut the lock out of the door? Right? This giant stone door. And it's like, well, you are very, very strong, and you have a tool that's specifically designed for cutting stone. So I guess you technically can. It's going to take a while. And then you end up setting up an entire encounter that is around, instead of them exploring the temple and finding out, like, ooh, what happened to the people who lived here, and, what's going on, and why are there giant spiders everywhere, this, that, the other thing. Instead of getting any world building or, like, whatever, instead you have a survival set-piece battle that I have to come up with on the fly, where the noise from them trying to dig their way out starts luring every spider within a 10-mile radius from the ceiling, because they can't see, like, the ceiling because it's too dark. And so from the ceiling, they just have continual waves of these giant spiders coming in. And it turned out to be a very satisfying encounter. Everyone enjoyed it. It was very fun. I can reuse that entire map because they went into 2 rooms in the entire fucking dungeon. So nobody saw the layout of that dungeon. I can just reuse it whenever I want. And, I can't fault them for it. They were put in a scary dungeon full of spiders, and they said no. And it's like, well, I can't say, okay, that's true. I mean, I've tried to put things in your path to prevent you from just leaving, but I'm sorry, you all have defeated me. You won't be able to experience this dungeon. Except you'll experience a really awesome set-piece battle that's better than the dungeon, honestly. Like even not for just the group, the set-piece battle that I was forced to come up with on the fly is just a better, like, experience for basically any player group than the dungeon that I came up with. The dungeon was fairly generic, the world building is cool, right? But, like, whatever. I mean, I was forced to do good DMing by the fact that the players refused to let me do bad DMing. But it wouldn't have been bad DMing, but just, you know, whatever. But so anyway, that is like the least. That was after a series of similar events. So like my players were basically how we started was my players were all trapped in an arena. They were trapped in an arena. The reason that they were trapped in an arena was because I actually had to. The first time I was DMing for this group, actually not even for this group, for a different group of players, and one of the players stayed over as like kept on to the second group and wanted to reuse that same character. So I said, well, why not just like continue on from where we were? This is gonna be fucking crazy, huh? We're going from a level 70 something spear to a level 188 spear. I'll take it. You know, that seems chill. I'll take it. Okay.
There's no room. I can't carry anything.
That's great, and we know that we're gonna get that because we can't not get it. It's on the ground here, and we have saved in the dungeon, so we know that it's here. Perfect. Like even if we die, it doesn't matter. It's a pretty big upgrade. Just, you know, a little bit. It's up the dragon, which isn't optimal for me, but I actually do also have that that other thing that I could use. The legendary. I have a legendary that gives this, which would allow my weapon enchant to scale with might instead. If I did that, I'd need to swap the damage boosting legendary to someone else. I could swap. Yeah, I mean it's not a bad effect. It's just that I am swapping off of darkness, so I'm going to have less lifesteal for a while. But it's not a big deal. Are you spawned or something? Why are you moving so slow? Okay. You know, this place is going way faster than I expected, actually.
We could sell it.
Cool.
Sell it. It's worthless.
Cool.
It's
This is going way faster than I expected. I guess clearing out such a huge pack right at the start has made a big difference. Yeah, the old weapon was old, but
It's locked.
it still had a thinger. Do I... So Catherine's key doesn't open this door. Okay. I think we're fine here. Once I clear this section, I will save one more time, and then we'll have 3 saves for very little. Yeah, I know it opens the top thing in the back. I've just forgot that there was another key involved. I didn't remember that there were any other locked doors in here. That's why I'm confused. Let's see. And we're in the green. So there aren't any enemies in this next room, which is great. We can save. We now have 2 more saves in us. Probably don't need this on anybody. I got my ring situation under control eventually, so we should be fine there. Let's see. Oh, right. I think that room we opened for the villain side quest. let's see. Oh, so anyway, so the premise for the situation that the characters were in was based off of the video game project that I had started many years back. That was itself based off of a short story project that I have fully abandoned because I'm not working in that world anymore. So that world is now my DMing world. Weirdly enough, so. Can I fight you here? Maybe. Let's see, so... Oh, so as a result of that, because basically I had to come up with a concept for a campaign at a hot tub. And I'm not kidding, actually. I was at a hot tub. We happened to have dice for some reason. I think I got dice. It might have been like my birthday party or something. And so I had dice that someone had given me. So we just had a set of dice. And so I was expected to come up with, on the fly, with no notes, no paper, no anything, a session. And so I'm just like, okay, well, what if I just blatantly steal from an existing setting that I have and just steal the entire setup for it, as these are just different characters in the same area as one of my characters was in during the thing. So they're in this, like, basically, like... arena that is this very like well put together like battle arena for like extremely wealthy nobles to come watch like monsters and slaves battle with each other, and you know, just like general like rich people doing bad shit stuff. And it's part of like a whole like thing. Anyway, the initial characters that were in there are actually relevant because of the fact that the answer to how to get out of this arena is you try to imprison a god in the arena. And then bad things happen. Because you tried to put a god in this arena, and let's just say the power levels involved are slightly above the power levels of whoever set up the barriers, and things go badly for you. So anyway, bad shit goes down, and the whole like place starts to like fall apart. Something which in the original setup isn't really explored. Like, what are the consequences for everyone else who's trapped there when someone starts blowing holes in a building whose purpose is to hide the fact that all this bad shit is happening, right? Well, the answer is rocks fall and everybody dies. And that is how that campaign ends, because the people who I was running that little mini thing for, as they're like exiting the arena, is basically the last time I'm able to play with them, because they leave for the opposite side of the world, and we're not doing it remotely, so we didn't come back to that campaign, right? However, I have another group of people who wants to play, and I have one of those people who was in the initial campaign who wants to keep playing the same character. So I go, okay, we'll just pick things up where we left off, with you running out of this building, and rocks fall, and everybody but you dies. The people that were riding on your back are dead. It's all bad. Nothing is good. And, you know, because they were, like, in dire wolf form, like, carrying someone out of the thing. Anyway, it's a whole thing. Everybody from the initial campaign is killed, except for one player, because they're not relevant to the new campaign. And then they're, like, trying to escape from the arena. And then I come up with, like, a monster concept based off of some of the stuff that happens in the initial thing. And they're fighting these, like, things that are basically... They're kind of like revenants, basically. But it's basically, like, an animated suit of armor that is literally like carrying the person around.
We could sell it.
In the I mean, so to be fair, technically that wasn't a way that I ended the campaign. The campaign ended with them like leaving or it being in the process of leaving, because it wasn't a campaign. It was just a one-off session that I was running at a hot tub. Technically, that was how I began the campaign, with me explaining to the one remaining player from that group how everybody else died. So that's technically how the next campaign begins. Is that scene where the initial people all die and the people who are like in this group manage to escape. There's a whole thing, but that's I think we only have one hitting us right now. There we go. So anyway. So we start up the next campaign, and they immediately are faced with a kind of a weird enemy, right? They're starting with like it's kind of like a reskinned revenant, because I think it's a revenant. It's something akin to a revenant, but it's basically like this is. Well, actually, I guess it started out with them fighting just a couple of guards. So they start fighting their way out. They're fighting a couple of guards. And when they kill one of the guards, he kind of just gets right back up and keeps fighting them. And the same thing happens with the other guard. And then and some of them want to keep fighting the guards who have like gotten back up, and some of them want to like just run away. And instead of like the group deciding as a group which of these it's going to be, instead some of them start running away and some of them keep fighting. It's great. It's glorious. Could easily result in a TPK. Doesn't result in a TPK. Eventually they end up running away because like half the group had run away, and it was all great. Like, you know, you have like characters. This is going to become a trend. Remember that thing I said about one of them being a direwolf and everybody else riding away on their back? Yeah, this is like how every combat fucking ends. It's them running away on the back of the fucking druid. So, anyway, it's a whole thing. It's glorious, and that's how the campaign begins, with me setting up an encounter that, you know, they're really just meant to fight the guards and then fight the reanimated guards. They're not technically reanimated. They're not undead in the classic sense. What it actually is it's actually just it's an enchantment on the armor as a fail-safe to ensure that even if the guards are killed, whatever it is that's causing a problem stops causing a problem. Let's see here. We are in deep shit, actually. Oh fuck, we're in deeper shit. This is not a good room to be in. Can I stand here? This is gonna end badly for me, I think. They can get in between these. Oh, I'm totally boned. There's no shot. No shot. No shot. Okay. Anyway. So the point being, every time I come up with an encounter, they run away from it. It's funny. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And this has been a trend with all of the people that I play. Whoa, shit. I didn't save at all. Oh, God. Oh, man. I didn't save after I cleared this gigantic room. Ooh, boy. Okay, that's an archer, so they're going to cause problems for me, probably. I didn't kill any bosses, did I? I mean, I know I only have 2 saves, but also, like, didn't I get to the point where I could just walk out of the dungeon and save? Like, ooh, that's a costly misstep. Anyway, it's been a good time dealing with that kind of stuff. But yeah, the other campaign that I had that I think was actually really, really solid, that I really enjoyed, was if I just lean into the horror angle, it works really well. So, like, if I try to do, like, a standard fantasy campaign, what ends up happening is everybody runs away from everything, and, like, I have to now... Like, I'll design, like, an entire place, right? And they'll see, like, 4 seconds of it and then immediately run away through some clever means that prevents them from, like, exploring the space in the way that I had intended. So when I make a horror campaign, for some reason, then they start acting like horror movie characters, which means that they go and explore instead of doing something sensible like leaving. So I have a campaign called the House Campaign, which was a very fun campaign where they're basically, like, investigating, like, missing persons reports. Like, they're basically, like, a team of people who have been sent from, you know... They've been basically brought together as a group by functionally, like, the military, though it's a bit less... it's not, like, fully centralized. Sorry, I seem to be taking way more damage than I'm expecting here, and I'm confused about it, and I'm gonna die. I cannot believe that I died to the 3 archers. I don't know what just happened. Okay. Anyway. So that campaign was meant to be terrifying, and that campaign, everybody had no problem sticking with and finding all the mysteries of the house. It was great. I don't know how many details I want to give about that campaign, because it's a campaign that I ran for a group of people, like, almost 20 years ago at this point, and I want to run that campaign again at some point, because I just think that it's a fun module, if that makes any sense. Like, normally I think of, like, campaigns, like, you know, okay, let's have, you know, like... Let's set this up for, like, we'll be playing this for a while. But the house is fully a module that I can fit into a lot of different settings and a lot of different, like, parties in a way that is just like, okay, well, I should hold on to this in my back pocket and not tell people too many details about it. Because only 4 people know anything about the house. And it's just a great campaign. It worked really well. It's a great module. Sorry, it's not a campaign. It's a module. It was part of a campaign, but the campaign was mediocre. The house itself was really good. Very enjoyable stuff. What happens when you find a house in a place where you don't expect to find a house? That's the principal conceit. Okay, should I dive these without saving? Yes. Yes, I should. And now it'll go fine. Yeah, it is funny because you would think that I would do...
We don't need this.
When I'm doing, like, the more horror stuff, you would really think that I would do more, like, oh, no, that... It's self-written. Like that. What I mean by module versus campaign is, like, it's a self-contained unit that you can just plop into a campaign. It's not like a. It can be part of a larger story, and it is part of a larger story contextually, but you can throw it into other settings without really needing to do too much. Like, you don't need to change that setting very much to make it work. You basically need to add a character to your setting, and the house campaign works. Right? And even then, you can adjust how you handle the one character that you're adding to your setting. and it works perfectly fine. But no, I don't. There have been times for like online campaigns that I've done some stuff like written by other people. I have done some campaigns that other people wrote at various points. I just don't like enjoy them that much. I just don't. I prefer working in my own settings. Yeah. Bear in mind that I've been very vague with it, and, you know, haunted house or, you know, otherwise horrifying house is, like, cursed house is one of the most common, like, horror tropes for a reason. It's just, like, a really, really good trope. I've never actually played Curse of Strahd. I'd like to play Curse of Strahd. I don't think I'd like to run Curse of Strahd, but I think it might be fun to play Curse of Strahd. Unfortunately, I don't think that's ever going to happen. Because DMs are hard to come by. the one friend of mine who DMs... We already have a campaign, and I don't want to stop that campaign for Curse of Strahd. So... we'll see. Maybe another friend will take up the mantle at some point.
Useless.
Yeah, I actually consider myself to be a fairly mediocre dungeon master. What I'm actually best at, like, I think, is the aspect of DMing, which I think is pretty important, but is not, like, anywhere near the most important bit, which is basically acting as a character creation consultant. I'm pretty good at helping people create characters that they find very satisfying. Like, a lot of my players have said that, like, the characters they created for my, like, campaigns are the favorite character that they've ever created, and they're very sad that they don't have a campaign to run them in anymore. Right? And some of those same players have also said that, you know, outside of the character creation aspect, my actual DMing is like, it's fine. But I'm really good at helping people come up with the initial character creation. Because, I mean, let's be honest. In terms of Dungeons and Dragons and, like, that kind of stuff generally, it's honestly the thing I have the most experience with, like, by far, is just coming up with character concepts. And like leaning into them hard. You know, well before I was making books, like many years before I was writing books, I was basically just chain making Dungeons and Dragons characters that I would never end up playing. Right? That there was never any chance that I was going to end up actually playing, because I didn't really play much D&D. I just made D&D characters. And I would say that making D&D characters and just like just sort of like statting out and doing things like that with characters was my version of fan fiction as a kid. That's how I would describe it. As my fan fiction era was not fan fiction, because that would imply that I was writing like stories. It was just coming up with like the character concepts and fleshing them out very strongly to do exactly what I wanted to do. And so that's a skill set that I built up quite strongly over the years. I'm going to basically clear out all the archers, and then I'm going to save again. We only have one save left. You know, no, I'm gonna clear out the archers, and then I'm gonna open this door instead of the other door, the one that doesn't have the boss, and then we'll save right before we fight the boss, because the boss just leaked through just now, which is a problem for us. It's a problem for us. But yeah, I enjoy helping people with, like, because I feel like a lot of new players get kind of trapped by the aesthetics of a class, and this is also true for old players as well. A lot of people struggle with, like, oh, well, this class has this mechanic, and then thinking the mechanic is the aesthetic, right? And it's like, well, no. I mean, this character does this thing. It does, like, I don't know, like 1d4 acid damage, right? It says that it does that through this means, but right here. But if you reskin this, you could make it come from this other source and do this other thing, right? It doesn't have to be the thing that's written here that is the source of it. Like, you don't need to do, like, it's not a balance consideration to change the flavor of a thing. I have a character who was a very devout worshiper of a cat god, and they were able to take, like, things like, there's, like, Cloud of Knives or whatever that is, and you just, like, reskin Cloud of Knives to just be, like, cat teeth, right, instead of knives or whatever. And, there's, like, there's a lot of stuff, like, you can play with, of stuff like, okay, you want to play a level 1 campaign and you want to play as an Aarakocra. I don't want to have to deal with you flying, so if you're playing an Aarakocra, we're gonna have some issues. So, how about if we do some shenanigans with this Aarakocra? Considering that the other setup that you've had so far with this Aarakocra, maybe they can't fly anymore because of this, and this reason. But in return, you get this natural weapon with these kinds of properties or whatever. Because again, level 1 campaign players should not be able to fly. That's way too much to work with. And they can if the DM wants to deal with that shit, but I don't. I can tell you, I don't want to deal with it. That's not entirely true. There are probably campaigns where I would want to deal with it. It's just a matter of the specific campaign and how it's run. But yeah, that Aarakocra is one of the characters that I was talking about when I was talking about how some of my players have said that, like, the character that they most want to play is in one of my campaigns, and that Aarakocra is one of them. And it's a very fun character. One of the great things about warlocks, okay, is that they serve a dual purpose, right? So warlocks allow you to basically set up, like, an established relationship that this character has that you as the DM can always fuck with them with in a way that you can't even with a family. Like, you can always, if you got a player and they've got, like, children, they've got a loving spouse, they've got an extended family network. If they're in some dungeon on the opposite side of the world, most likely those relationships aren't relevant at this particular moment because they can't talk to them right now. Right? They might be they're relevant in the sense that they're still emotionally resonant and important. Maybe they're impacting their motivations for being in here, but they're not getting called up on the telephone, right? And being told, like, oh, by the way, the big bad evil guy has, like, kidnapped your family or whatever, right? Or, oh, hey, can you get, like, groceries on your way back? It's like, no, because I'm on the opposite side of the world right now, and I don't have access to teleportation. I'm only level 6.
Worthless.
So those kinds of relationships, weirdly, as the characters get really high levels, start to become always relevant again. But for large portions of the gameplay, they're not really that relevant because they're not physically in proximity. Whereas a Warlock patron can always fuck with you. A Warlock patron can fuck with you whenever. As can your Divinity, right? Divinities are more hands-off. So you don't want to fuck with a cleric too much with their Divinity, especially at low level, because it's like, why is the Divinity paying that much attention to this level 2 cleric, right? Who fucking cares, right? But fucking with Warlocks is like a patron's entire thing. Their whole deal is that they're fucking with their Warlocks. So, to me, it's a great relationship to play with, and it's very fun. I really enjoy Warlocks. I have done a lot of stuff with Warlocks for various players over the years that are mechanically very stimulating for me. I really enjoy the Warlock shenaniganry. Looks like we've cleared this dungeon. I don't know how that happened, but, sometimes in life things happen. Yeah, I also generally prefer to start around level 3. It depends on the thing. Mechanically, I prefer to start at level 3. Right? Starting at level 3 mechanically is really solid, and narratively I think that it also works really well because it gives you, this isn't their first rodeo for the characters. Like, this isn't, they have an established relationship with the world if they're level 3. At level 1, they're very young. They're very, they don't have an established relationship with the world, right? So, that changes the way that they interact with things, right? But sometimes I like to use level 1 characters for specific types of things. But I don't have a huge amount of combat. Honestly, I certainly do some combat, but I don't do a ton of it. So one of the issues that you run into with level 1 characters is the fact that every combat is a very lethal combat, right? Every time you put them into a fight, there is a very high probability that they're going to die. And that's a concern if you run 5 combats at level 1. I'm not going to run 5 combats at level 1. I'm going to run maybe 2, right? And so it's easier to design a couple of fights that the sort of the lethality of the fight can be managed, right? So, if you're in a situation where if you're in a situation where the enemies don't actually desire to kill you, if you just put a level 1 party into a standard, the bog standard goblins are attacking the village plot, right? That's really dangerous because they're level 1. They, a single goblin getting a critical hit will kill them. Not knock them unconscious, kill them. Right? A level 1 wizard is very squishy. But if you put them into a scenario where the combat isn't tied to an invading army that's trying to murder everyone in this area. I just realized that I did not bring any food. Once again, mistakes were made. Okay, we're gonna fly back here. What time is it actually? I should, yes, because I ran into an issue just now where I got weak at 3 a.m., so I might start dying soon. So we definitely need to go train. So let's train up. Once we've trained up, we can... I also need to be checking for bounties. On corpse, I don't think I'm doing that.
Need some training?
It's Sunday. I can't train... I can't do it here, right? I have to be in Harmondale? Yeah, that has to be Harmondale. Is it 3 or 2? It's 2 in this game. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I remember the only thing that I remember about running the red box was the fact that, like, I don't know, I have no... a friend of mine had the red box and had me DM it, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I still remember with Redbox, the... like... I had, like, a... What were they? Were they gnolls? I think it was a gnoll. It might have been a hobgoblin. I don't remember. It was something with a halberd. And I remember that it rolled a nat 1 on its attack, and I was like, I threw in some flavor of like, oh yeah, you know, this thing like breaks its weapon when it attacks you because it just fucked up, right? And I remember the person who is the person who picked up the red box, like arguing with me about whether that's in the rules or not. And it's like, this is my fucking monster. Whatever I want to happen when it fucks up and does something stupid, it happens. I'm not fucking with your characters. This isn't like a rule about nat 1s. This is just a thing that happened to this enemy on a nat 1. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't even see the nat 1 because they can't see what my rolls are. And it was very funny. There was this cultural desync that is interesting because of the fact that at the time, like, we were kids, right? Like, this is functionally pre-internet. Like, it was pre-internet in the way that, like, we think of the internet. Oh, shit, I need to reload. I didn't hit regen there.
That's the ticket. That's the ticket.
That's a rule.
That's the ticket.
Let's do that now. And, anyway, so it was just kind of interesting because that has ended up being like the sort of like weird rules lawyery, like oppositional stuff, has become part of D&D discourse since then. But at the time, there was no D&D discourse for, you know, teenagers, you know, hanging around. You know what I mean? There wasn't anything that we were basing this weird, like, antagonism that this person was bringing toward me, other than just, like, the natural behavior of teenagers. So, the rules lawyery shit, hey, teenagers come by it honestly, because it gets independently recreated both in culture at large as well as at the tables that I was in as a teenager. Let's see. Anyway, that's the only thing that I remember about the red box. I think that I only actually used it once. And but I found D&D very fascinating, starting with 3rd edition. I played like Baldur's Gate and stuff like that, but like I didn't get into AD&D at all. Like as a system, I didn't get into it. But when Neverwinter Nights came out, I played some of that, and then once I started digging around with character creation in Neverwinter Nights, that's when I started getting into like, because I did a bunch of like character creation in Baldur's Gate 2 as well, but it never left Baldur's Gate 2. Once I started playing Neverwinter Nights, I started like making characters for it. I started like actually like getting books, and so I have a bunch of 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons books that I used specifically just to create characters with, rather than to actually play the game. I didn't play 3rd edition almost at all. Yeah, most of my actual campaigns that I've run are actually 4th edition. But yeah, 5th edition I've done a little bit with, but not honestly a ton. But that's also part of why it is that I was more comfortable having like 1st level characters, because 1st level characters are a lot less insane to run in 4th edition than they are in other editions. In 4th edition, a level 1 character has a lot more HP than they do in previous editions. And subsequent editions, for that matter. Alright, I'm going to just try to use this thing here. Because the Swapper Bandit is a serious issue. So rather than try to just brute force it, we can just use a corner there. Even if it swaps us, it's just swapping us to the other side of the same corner. So it will, in theory, still be locked in. I liked 4th edition fine. I like some of the more simulationist elements of D&D to a degree, but if I'm being honest, I think that the simulationist elements of D&D are kind of badly implemented. And so, because of that, like, the removal of a bunch of mechanics that aren't specifically tied to combat don't bother me that much, because like the crafting system in 3rd edition was garbage. Like, it was bad. So like, you're going to just use whatever crafting system you decide to use that's not that anyway. So like, the fact that they removed that, I didn't have a problem with that. I thought that it plays... It's easier to come up with like a very clean character concept in 4th edition, I think, to a degree. And to be perfectly honest, I think that 4th edition did something different than what the other editions are trying to do. It's a little less generic in some ways, which makes it useful as an addition in a way where, like, I'm not sure that, like, I'm not sure, to be perfectly frank, that 5th edition has that much utility over 3rd edition with some house rules. Like, if I'm being honest, like, I don't fully get the point of 5th edition because of the fact that it really isn't that unique. It is kind of just a patch on 3rd edition with some of the 4th edition stuff added in, and some stuff made, like, kind of just, like, worse. Like, the multi-class mechanics are confusing and bizarre in 5th edition, and I say this as someone who played 3rd edition, and I'm calling the 5th edition multi-class mechanics confusing and bizarre, because that's what I believe. I think that it's weird. I think the way that the multi-classes work is strange and unusual. I think that they overuse advantage and disadvantage. I think advantage and disadvantages are good mechanics, but I think that they're overused. The proficiency system doesn't scale very high, so like, and like the whole stat system is so limited that like the difference between low and high level characters on skill checks is non-existent, while they still have the ability to rewrite the laws of reality. Like, there's weird stuff that's like, there's this weird disconnect between like the power fantasy of like Hercules and the power fantasy of God, like who's a wizard to think of for this, because Gandalf isn't really a power fantasy. I guess Elminster, like the power fantasy of an Elminster, right? Elminster can still be Elminster in 5th edition. A barbarian or any other, like, you know, physical character is never going to have an athletics check that makes them feel like Hercules. That's just not possible in 5th edition, because 5th edition, all the numbers are too small. So the difference between a 1st level and a 20th level character are really quite small. A 20th level character who rolls badly can be outperformed very regularly by a 1st level character. Like, it's not that hard to outperform a 20th level character. Which I think is kind of shitty, honestly. I don't like that element. And it's not because I don't think that, like, high level and low level characters should have similarities. It's that the 20th level spellcasters have access to Wish. The spells at 20th level still rewrite the laws of reality, but the skill checks are barely better than they are at 1st level. And I think that's an issue. I think that's an issue, personally. So 5th edition, I feel kind of stymied a bit by how limited the skill checks are, particularly because I like skill monkey characters. But if you're not playing as a rogue that has reliable talent, like, there's really no difference between, like, and there's some difference, but there's not as much of a difference as I'd like between someone who has dedicated their entire build to skill checks and someone who hasn't. Because there's just, like, one class that can do skill checks good. And to a degree, that's true for other ones as well. But yeah. 4th edition, I think, did a very unique thing for Dungeons & Dragons. I'm sure that other people have done something similar. 5th edition, I just don't know that it actually did enough unique to really justify its existence. I think it's fine. And it's a little bit easier for people to learn than 3rd edition. Right? Because I think 3rd edition is the comparison. Like, you wouldn't, like, say, you know, directly compare the usability of 5th edition and 4th edition, because they're very different games with very different intentions behind them. They're not meant to do the same thing, so I wouldn't directly compare them. 3rd edition and 5th edition, I think, are more like peers in terms of what it is that they're trying to do. And so, yeah. 5th edition is fine. Disagree with which part? With it maybe being a little bit more difficult to learn 3rd?
I'm not dead yet.
3rd has a lot of, like, nitty-gritty mechanical details that hit you the second that you start it. Like, dealing with, like... okay, I'm going to do a charge attack, right? As part of my action. What does that entail? Because the charge attack gives, like, a +2, like, circumstance bonus to your attack, and then you have, like, you know, all these other things. There's a lot of math to do in 3rd edition that you don't have to do, but in addition, like, yeah, did I say that I thought that 3rd edition was easier to learn for the average person? Oh, the only thing that I think is easier to track is multi-class mechanics, because multi-class is functionally not supported by 5th edition. Like, multi-classing in 5th edition is not a supported mechanic. There are so many unanswered questions with how individual things work within it that your DM just has to make decisions on the fly about multi-classing, because it's just not a supported mechanic. Like, I have it leveling from 3rd level to 4th in 3rd edition, I, as the player, can just do it. Leveling from 3rd to 4th level in 5th edition, I had like 5 clarifying questions that I had to ask my dungeon master.
Useless.
Because I'm multi-classing, and as I'm multi-classing, I'm realizing this rule is not actually robust and does not apply to my current situation. I could see multiple ways to interpret this. So multi-classing is harder in 5th edition because there's no rules for it. There's some like pseudo rules attached to it, but multi-classing, I would 100% stand behind the statement that multi-classing is harder in 5th edition than it is in 3rd edition. Because while the math in 3rd edition is a pain in the ass, and it's, again, like, it's 3rd edition, everything is hard in 3rd edition, right? Because there's way too much bullshit to memorize and stuff like that. While that is the case, in 5th edition, there just aren't robust enough rules at all to be able to make a decision as a player about how your character works and be able to tell the GM what you're doing. Whereas in 3rd edition, you can make a character and say, this is what I've done, and it abides by the rules. I don't have to ask my DM, does this abide by your interpretation of the rules for how to multi-class into a knowledge domain cleric at level 4? Right? Like, the dynamics of how the skill systems work are moderately insane. The proficiency system breaks down with multi-classing in very serious ways. There's huge numbers of problems with, like, if you're building a character, like, there's, like, things where, like, oh, you know, your background feat or whatever gives you, like, bonus proficiencies, or this gives you bonus proficiencies. And in some situations, the bonus proficiencies that you're given can be just swapped to a new proficiency if you're already proficient with all of the things that you're supposed to be proficient in. But in other cases, seemingly arbitrarily, that is not the case, and you simply lose out on the proficiency bonus that you were supposed to have gained, right? So, like, a 1st level cleric is not a 4th level multi-class, but the rules all are for a 1st level cleric. And all the things talk in the context of a 1st level cleric, even though you're actually a 3rd level something else, 1st level cleric, right? So, like, the rules don't make sense with the way that it all works, and it ends up with a problem. Let's see. Yeah. So anyway, the basic gist of what I meant was, what I'm saying there is just that, like, regardless of, like, whether multi-classes are good, and I think that multi-classes are generally weaker than you would expect, the rules as written aren't robust enough to handle usage cases that are complex, which ends up being a really big problem for multi-classing, because multi-classing is inherently about a bunch of weird nitty-gritty interactions that happen when you combine, you know, this feature and this feature, right? That kind of stuff. Which ends up being a problem because, like, is a single class character interesting? Like, occasionally, yeah, but, like, how common is it to be like, you know, okay, I want a character who's at the end of one part of their life and is transitioning into a new stage of their life, and that's the thing that I want to explore, right? Like, that's really common. And so I think it's probably really normal to start with a 3rd level character, and your intention is to get 17 levels of a different class if you were to take that character forever, right? Like, that's normal, not just because people want to be munchkins, but because people want to play a character who's at a moment of transition in their life, because why the fuck else would you be playing them if they weren't in an interesting part of their life? Now, obviously, there's other ways to make it an interesting part of their life than to make them multi-class. Like, you can be a fighter who's in an interesting moment in their life, but transitioning from one type of, profession to another profession is a very normal thing to want to explore. And yeah, hey, look, I will tell you that my multi-class barbarian sorcerer is actually surprisingly functional. Getting one level in every class can actually work for a pretty long time. It takes a while before the inherent downsides of that start making it really, really just unworkable. Look, some of those classes, I'm gonna say, some of those classes, really unfortunate at level 1. You know, taking a level of Paladin, not great, actually. A level of Paladin, not great. 2 levels of Paladin, great. 1 level of Paladin, Turns out they have a lot of mechanics that unlock at level 2. Which is kind of funny, because it means, like, in theory, like, level 1 Paladins must kind of suck, right? Like, I've never played a level 1 Paladin, but when I was looking at, like, all of my, like, multi-classing options, I was, like, looking at Paladin, and I'm like, you don't get any of your Paladin shit at level 1, do you? Ooh, okay. So, that's interesting. I'm going to have to take a level of that eventually if I ever end up taking that character up. I am intending to level that character 1 level in a new class every single time, just because it's the character, right? That's their whole deal. But I'm not expecting it to do well. Nor should it, to be fair. Like, I don't think that leveling a single level in each class should be a good build. That's fine for advancing in your, like, career to actually be good, rather than to just listlessly shift every single level. That's fine with me. Yeah. The other thing is that, like, I do think that, like, as the DM, it's your job to come up with things that are interesting for your characters to do, to a large degree, right? Like, and that shifts a lot depending on what your character builds are. So, like, viability and balance, I don't think are relevant to D&D that much. Like, I think that I think it's important to think about, like, in some senses, like, thinking about, like, okay, like, a wizard has the ability to rewrite the laws of reality at level 20. Does a fighter actually have enough going on for them to feel like they're Hercules? Because, like, a wizard isn't like Hercules. A wizard is like Zeus. Like, a 20th level wizard is like Zeus, more so than they're like Hercules, right? So if a 20th level fighter doesn't even feel like Hercules, we've got a problem, right? And so balance is relevant sometimes in the sense of, like, the real extremes, where it's like you're looking at, okay, this character who's at, like, the peak of their career, best of the ability that you can possibly get, has, like, a plus 14 to their role. And this character can cast Wish and unwrite the rules of reality. And it's like, well, a plus 14 is smaller than the die, so doesn't a level 1 have, like, a plus 7 if they're good at the thing? This doesn't seem like there's that big of a difference here. The idea that they limited natural stats to 20 is very strange to me. Like, you can start with 20 strength. Why is that the maximum? Really bizarre stuff. Like the upper boundaries and stuff like that, I find incredibly bizarre. Like very needlessly limiting in a world where you have the wish spell. Like, it's so weird, right? Like, what, you think like a fighter having a +8 to strength is worse? Is like unreasonable in a world where wish exists? Like, why? What's happening here? It's like someone at Wizards of the Coast is like, you know what the most important balance problem that we have in our game is number creep. It's the creep of the things that have distinct mathematical ties to them. That's the thing that we've got a problem with. We don't have any problems with like the things that are just, you can do whatever the fuck you want. There's no roll required, no anything required, just hey, rewrite reality. That's fine. But the fact that fighters would end up rolling like a +30 to their athletics, that was the problem. It certainly seems to be, right? Like this, it seems to be that the problem that was approached was, fighters rolling a +30 to athletics is unreasonable, but Wizards rewriting reality is fine. Because Wizards can still rewrite reality. And, fighters can lift rocks that are, slightly heavier than they could at level 1. Let's see, what is the proficiency difference? The proficiency difference is, it starts at a +2, is it? I think it starts at a +2 at level 1 and is a +3 by level 2, by level 3 or something. And I think it goes up to like +7 or something, right? The proficiency bonus?
No problem.
Which makes sense, because, like, how are you going to stop them, right? That's historically how you get a king, is some barbarian conquers a bunch of territory and says, this is all mine now, with a bunch of their buddies. Does it get all the way to +10? I didn't think it got all the way to +10. I'm gonna Google this. This is something we need to identify. There's a big difference between +7 and +10 for being the highest. Proficiency bonus 5. Let's see. The proficiency bonus at level 20 is +6. +6. The bonus for 20 strength, according to Roll20, it continues to increase until it reaches +6 at level 17. It starts at a +2. So the difference between a 20th level character's proficiency bonus and a first level character's proficiency bonus is +4, which is less than the difference between a 10 strength and a 20 strength. And you can start with 20 strength. like, unless you have, whatchamacallit, it's so crazy. It's so crazy. Like, unless you have the double proficiency, you're just, oh man, you're so boned if you want to make a character who's good at things, right? Like, how do you become good at a thing if you can only get a +6 proficiency bonus and you can only have 20 in a stat, but you can also start at that at level 1? It's wild. It's really wild stuff.
Jump. Now here's something.
We don't need this.
Let's see. Well, the thing is that the hard cap, though, is like your magic shit that you have, right? Like, you as a character, right, just your character, can't get better than a 20. Right? Like, you can't build a character who has 25 strength. You can get magic shit that gets you above 20, but not, like, you can't get your natural stats that high. Unless they've added feats since the last time I checked that allow you to increase the maximum for your stats. Because you can, like, start with 20, and then from there it's just like, okay, I need to find a thing that increases my strength cap. Is that, like, specific to when they're raging or something? Because I'm not familiar with a mechanic for Barbarian that increases their strength cap. I don't think I've seen any feats that add +1 to your cap. I'll have to look again. That's definitely not in the player's handbook. Like, that is explicitly not in the player's handbook. So if that has been, is that maybe like the Goliath class or something like that? Like the barbarian, like for the giant tome thing that they just added. Huh. Yeah, at any rate, very strange. It's very strange how, like, how massively limiting everything is.
Can someone heal me?
I gotcha. You gotta have those pay-to-win components in your RPGs, you know? Let's make a obviously huge flaw in the design that makes it so that characters that are supposed to be good at a thing are just not good at it. And then add supplementary books that you can purchase to make them able to do the thing that they should just be able to do in the first place. Holy shit, that is fast. What is my regen right now? It's only 1,000, so that's just the out-of-combat regen going crazy. Alright. Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying that you actually need to in order to find this stuff, because, you know, hey man, information is free if you just want it to be. But I just mean, like, from a design perspective, it's a specific kind of choice to have all the power creep in the splat books. You know what I mean? Okay, shall we go into one of these dungeons? Yeah, let's go into the dungeon up here, actually. This is a really tiny dungeon. We can plow through pretty quickly, I think. Yeah, it's rough. I'm like looking through all, like, the magic items and shit that they have. One of the things that's, like, a problem with the stuff is, like, it's such a pain in the ass to try to come up with, like, a magic item that will work on D&D Beyond. And it's an issue. It's an issue because it's like you want to, because if you're using D&D Beyond as like your character sheet, but like it can't handle adding arbitrary bonuses to things very easily, like you have to work your ass off to get like anything custom built into it, then it doesn't work very well as a character sheet. Like, even for Bowden, who's not a terribly complex character, I feel like D&D Beyond already falls apart just because of multiclassing mechanics. Just the multiclassing mechanics themselves are so broken that, like, you just can't build a 3-1 character without everything falling apart. Is that a leech? Did I just see a leech effect? I don't think so. Must be something else.
Victory is ours.
Yep, that's always how it be. Yeah, that was a really wild hostile takeover. It is actually very funny how, like,
It might be useful.
if you have been, like, a millennial on the internet, like, the shitification of the internet, it is, like, such a clear phenomenon that you've just been watching happen your entire life. And I feel like
I can't carry anymore.
older people did not see that their entire life, where it's like the second that a thing gets taken over by, like, a corporation, it immediately falls to shit. Let's see. Yeah, they want you to repurchase everything. The fundamental thing is someone with a shoestring budget and basically no resources constructs a cool thing that is really great and works well, and then a capitalist buys it and obliterates it in order to make it monetizable. And then you repeat this process for 30 years, and that has been my experience in life. That's just been the process. That's basically been every piece of media, every, like, system that I've ever interacted with, right? Like, hey, Might and Magic. Oh, I wonder what happened to the company that made these games. Oh, they got bought by a company that promised to allow them to spend more money making cooler, larger projects. That's cool, cool, cool. And then they continued to make cooler and larger projects that made money until their parent company went bankrupt for unrelated reasons and destroyed the company. Okay, that seems that doesn't seem like how things are supposed to work. So this company that made good products and never stopped making products that were profitable, even though the quality of the products diminished rapidly because they were forced to put out a bunch of garbage toward the end of their life cycle in order to turn a quick profit for their parent company. Even though they never stopped being profitable, the parent company itself was hemorrhaging so much money that it didn't matter that their company was doing fine. And they just kind of dissolved. Huh. Imagine.
No space. There's no room.
And that's for those wondering, that's what happened to Might and Magic. Capitalism. It's shocking that there's so much anti-capitalist sentiment in 2024 after years and years of the enshittification of everything as people try to, monetize it. Yeah. Well, I mean, Hasbro's been doing a lot of shady shit. As far as I can tell, what Hasbro's going to do with WOTC is like run it into the ground on probably a mixture of crypto and AI shit. That would be my guess. Is that they're just going to run the company completely into the ground. Yeah, same shit that like remember when like the CEO of Square Enix cost the company so much fucking money betting on crypto that they had to sell like Tomb Raider as a property to pay off the debts? Like, that's the kind that like right there is the kind of shit that I'm expecting to happen with Hasbro. Is some major thing like, so WOTC might end up getting sold to another company to pay off their gambling debts with their stupid AI shit. Yeah. It's really, really nuts. If they had... Bear in mind, like, Tomb Raider wasn't the only property they had to sell off. They had to sell off a bunch of shit. It was like... it was a really fucking big deal. But yeah, because of that, that does mean that that Square Enix no longer controls, that property. I don't know if the people who they sold it to are any better. But yeah, that could easily happen with WOTC. The other thing though is that could happen is they just liquidate it. Right? Which is what happened with Might and Magic. With Might and Magic, it was just fully liquidated. But my guess would be that what's going to end up happening is that Magic the Gathering is going to continue, and eventually Dungeons & Dragons as a property is going to get liquidated. That would be my guess. Because they're not going to be able to monetize Dungeons & Dragons in the way that they want to monetize it, to make it... They want to make Dungeons & Dragons Magic the Gathering. That's what they want. They want it to be an explicitly, you pay us a shit ton of money to maybe get, a +1 staff, right? Like, and I do say maybe because they want to sell booster packs. They don't want to sell you a +1 staff. They want to sell you the possibility that you pick up a +1 staff, right? And that's what they want to do. That's what every company wants to do. Every gaming company, every gaming company wants to be a slot machine because slot machines are just free money for the people running the slot machine. And it's even better if the slot machine doesn't have to pay out money and can instead pay out bullshit digital stuff, right? Like giving you a hat in a video game that you already had downloaded on your hard drive is a really great, investment of their time and money for you to charge, you $5 to unlock the hat, right? They don't even have to, send it to you. You already have it. Yeah. Yeah, it's going to slow them down. But the thing is that at the end of the day, D&D is going to either be converted into what Hasbro wants it to be, or it's going to get liquidated. Because companies don't do things that don't make them all the money anymore. Yeah. That is true, because it would be $5 for the chance to get the hat and you have a 1 in 10 chance of getting that. But let's see. Yeah. But yeah, that's the fundamental issue that we run into with with basically like late stage capitalism specifically. One of the issues is that like capitalism's been around for a while. The problems we're having with capitalism now are new. Capitalism hasn't always been like what it is now. That's not to say it was better, right? Like the robber barons were not better than the people that are running like companies now. To be clear, like they were not better. In many cases, the things that they were doing were massively worse than anything that's currently being done by most of like the tech CEOs, at least. Most of the worst excesses of capitalism in terms of human cost, that shit's been around forever, right? But in terms of the costs to the people that are ostensibly supposed to be the beneficiaries, right? So people living in the global north who are supposed to be benefiting from the fact that they're enslaving the global south without paying attention to it, right? Those people are supposed to be the beneficiaries of capitalism in theory, and now they're getting fucked in ways that they've never gotten fucked before. So the dynamic of like how it's all playing out is very different, and it's basically just the increased efficiency of capitalism, the ability to do the math better and to understand that like it doesn't matter if you ever sell anything to the working class if the working class doesn't have any money. Like this is one of the things that I think is like one of the big lies of capitalism is that it's profit motivated. It's actually not profit motivated anymore. It used to be profit motivated, right? During simpler times, capitalism was profit motivated. But Tesla doesn't make any money. Tesla doesn't make any money. It's a tiny ass company that doesn't make any money. Their money comes from shareholders. That's all that it comes from. It just comes from rich people moving money around. And that's true for basically the entire economy now, where people have the presumption that a company can only continue to exist if it's profitable, or should, in theory, be able to become profitable at some point in the future. But that's actually not the case. A company can continue to be profitable and exist as long as shareholders keep having a reason to dump money into it. And shareholders share capital interests, or share class interests with each other that make it so that a lot of the stuff that objectively doesn't work makes you make more money in this economy, because like if you treat your employees badly to the point where like it's unprofitable to do so, the people who are giving you money think that that is actually going to make you money even though it objectively doesn't, and so they give you more money, right? So like, and then because of the fact that they're giving you more money, you become worth more, which means that when they sell, they make more money because some other, shareholder has pumped up the price, right? Like everything is a pump and dump now, right? To like greater or lesser extents. The mechanics of capitalism have moved so far beyond the actual value of a share in real tangible terms, in the sense of like, okay, a share has value because of dividends. Dividends are what give a share value. The idea of I'm holding on to this and the company will pay a portion of its profits to me as a shareholder in dividends. That's what gives the shares value. But because it's now... That wasn't a shot, so I don't think I have to reload. But because now companies can buy their own stock back, they can now give shareholders money without profit being in the equation at all. Because if let's say shareholder 1 buys a stock, and that pumps up the price. And then shareholder 2, buys stock, which pumps up the price more. You can now you can now buy back the stock that the first person gave you with the money the second person gave you. That's a thing you can do. So, and in order to facilitate that, you can just fire your entire workforce so you don't have to pay anybody. And sure, it'll destroy the company eventually, but it's going to take a long time because what matters is the money that's coming in from the investors, not the money that's coming in from profit, because the working class doesn't have any money anymore. And since the working class doesn't have any money anymore, their part in the equation, the actual selling of goods and services to people, becomes less and less a component of the actual economy in terms of, like, not the real economy. The real economy is still goods and services being bought and sold, right? But in terms of where the money in the economy ends up going, it ends up going just to the people at the top because they never move it out from themselves, right? They're just buying and selling stuff amongst themselves and leeching more and more wealth out of the working class over time. And again, this is a problem that on some level has always existed. It's a fundamental component of capitalism. However, it used to be mitigated by things like, and look, as I'm very much an atheist, but like, stuff like Christian, social norms, or, Muslim social norms, Jewish social norms, whatever, social norms that are associated with whatever your religion is, social norms that are associated with just like general societal norms that are maybe vaguely related to religion, but are often not, like things like that. But as the central dogma of capitalism, which is greed is good, becomes more and more the only like moral standing that the majority of the population has, and you have the rise of things like prosperity gospel and stuff like that, which is saying that if you are wealthy, you are by definition good, because God would only let you become wealthy if you were good, right? So it's like, it is not a virtue to be wealthy. It is a demonstration of your virtue that you were allowed to become wealthy, right? That kind of thing is like, you don't see that kind of shit outside of like monarchism. Really, like monarchism is where that kind of shit comes from. Prosperity gospel has its roots in monarchy. The divine right to rule is the divine right of, well, I'm rich, therefore God must like me. Like, fundamentally, prosperity gospel and monarchism are pretty much the same thing. But that's become more and more of a thing. So culturally, there's less ability to say, hey, maybe you shouldn't do the thing that makes the absolute most amount of money for the shareholders. Maybe you should be allowed to do something else. And maybe treating people well actually would generate more dividends and things like that. But dividends, again, are not considered relevant anymore. Like, there's plenty of companies that are traded on the stock market for immense amounts of money that have no theoretical value because they don't give dividends, right? Like, Tesla doesn't pay dividends. The shareholders of Tesla, in theory, can't make money. I guess they can technically make money from stock buybacks, which are basically like dividend 2.0, right? But like, the theoretical value of the stock, if we were following the laws of the world from 30 years ago, would indicate that Tesla fundamentally is a stock with no value at all. So why is anybody buying it? Because they've stated that they will never pay dividends, right? So like, what's the point? There's a big difference between saying we're not going to pay dividends at first until we grow the company, and saying we're never going to pay them. Those are very different statements of intent. Because saying we're not paying them right now, we're going to grow the company, is an investment in the future dividends that you would be paying. Saying we're never going to pay them at all is saying, I would like you to invest in nothing. I would like you to invest in nothing at all. We're not going to give you anything. Just give us money for free. That's what saying that you're never going to do dividends is on a fundamental level. And people will still do it because at this point, the value of stock to the average investor has nothing to do with dividends anymore. So despite the fact that in theory, like all of the hype and this and that is supposed to be associated with eventual profit that the company is going to make and be able to turn into other stuff, at this point, the casino aspect of the casino is the only part that's left, where you can literally just have people saying, you know, we're gonna give you the ability to invest in nothing. And it works because it's because they're basically like they're like investing in fucking, you know, Beanie Babies or whatever. Like fundamentally, that's what the stock market has become, is just like buying a shit ton of Beanie Babies and hoping that it works. That's the whole world economy now. The whole world economy, like the way that entire governments operate everything, is built off of fucking Beanie Baby hype. It's really wild. And again, it didn't used to be this way. There's a lot of differences between the way that we work today and the way that things worked before. That they are different. Again, not better or worse necessarily, just different. There's been very massive changes in the way it still works. I feel so bad for there's so many like creative people who have made like really cool shit, and then some company comes in and just tells them, oh yeah, we will enable you to make even cooler shit and give you some extra money to play with, and this, that, or the other thing. And because these people are creatives, they're not like they're not business people. They basically give away control without realizing they're giving away control, and make themselves vulnerable to the inevitable collapse of the company that was always a scam from the beginning, for the purpose of leeching off money for the person who originated the scam, right? Like a lot of these, like, you know, publishing style things, whether it's like YouTube, multi-channel networks, or video game publishers, or what have you, a lot of them are just scams with the intention that the people who are running the show will eventually run off with everybody's money in 5 years. Like, that's their actual business model. That's the intention. So, it's very sad. It's very sad. But that's okay. Nevertheless, we persist. I think that it's one of the things that's very hopeful about the world to me, right, is looking at the world and realizing how kind of transparent and dumb so much of it is, to the point where it does feel fixable. The fact that it's not fixed is really depressing or whatever, right? Because it's like, oh, wow, this is like, a lot of this is fairly obvious stuff, and we're, you know, running into these problems anyway. But, like, there's a lot of work that goes into ensuring that these problems continue to exist. It's not a low-maintenance activity to maintain this kind of shit. And the fact that, you know, the fact that these problems seem so manageable to me makes me feel like, despite the fact that, you know, there's absolutely no evidence that we're going to make any progress on any of them in the near future, the possibility is not crazy. If the problems that faced our world were actually as complicated as, like, neoliberals would want you to believe, if they were actually as complicated as they want you to believe, then I'd be way more depressed. But the fact of the matter is that the problems are mostly just problems of, like, oh yeah, we built a system that generates evil as a matter of course. It's pretty obvious and easy to identify that it does that, to the point where, like, weirdly enough, like, teenagers have very bad, like, political takes. This is true. But the average political, like, take from a 14-year-old is oftentimes better than the average political take of a news pundit who's well respected in the industry. Not like, you know, some, like, wacko that nobody respects. Just the people that people have a lot of respect for have incredibly bad political instincts and think that a lot of things are really complicated that are really quite simple. And they want to make things way more complicated than they have to be, and this, that, and the other stuff. And they get lost in the sauce and in minutia that doesn't really mean that much, rather than approach systemically the problems, right? Whereas, like, the attempt to make the world here's how I would describe it. If you try to explain the world as being a bunch of good systems that are being nevertheless undermined by bad actors who are, like, conspiring to make our perfect utopia into something terrible, if you treat the world that way, the world is a very complicated and very difficult to understand phenomenon, right? In much the same way that if you believe that the Earth is the center of our solar system, you have to invent some very clever mathematical shit involving tiny celestial strings tying everything together the way that the church had to, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago, in order to justify away the idea that maybe the problem is the systems and the problem is instead just these individual, you know, people. You have to come up with really, really complex explanations for everything. If the problem is that the system is just doing the thing that the system is always going to do, because that's kind of how it's made, right? It doesn't matter what the intent of the system is. It wasn't created by, you know, a, like, omnipotent, omniscient entity. It's just a collection of the behaviors of a bunch of fucking apes. Right? That's what our system is. It's a bunch of apes doing shit that other apes designed for reasons that are fundamentally inexplicable over the course of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, I guess at this point, thousands of years, right? Like, so the idea that those systems are flawed and have very, not even necessarily flawed, but that they are flawed for the purposes that we would want them to achieve, is not that complicated. And a lot of the problems become fairly simple, right? A lot of the problems become like, okay, well, what if we increase the relative democracy in this system? What if we increase the amount of, like, input that the least enfranchised within the system had? Would that make the least enfranchised within the system better off, right? You know, the fundamental concept behind democracy, right? And the answer to that seems to be yeah, based off of history. Based off of history, as we enfranchise more people, things get better for them, but also kind of just get better for everyone else. So enfranchisement seems to be working great when we do it, but we also just fully have sectors of our lives that we just don't bother to add any democratic systems to, right? The concept of private property, that someone can own a thing that you work, and your work is owned by them, right? And they don't have to pay you, right? Like a slave isn't paid, but that is still a capitalist institution, right? Like they don't have to pay you. Sometimes they will deign to pay you, but you have no ownership stake in your labor. Your labor is owned by the capitalist because you did that labor using their property, right? Again, private property and personal property are different. Your house is your personal property. Private property is property that you use to make a profit off of using other people's labor, right? That is what private property is. Whether through rent seeking or through the working of a working of a factory or something like that, right? So that's something that's fundamentally pretty simple, and the idea that like, oh yeah, if you give the people who own the factory unlimited power to do whatever they want with the labor of the people within that factory, it seems like that would lead to people consolidating power more and more to themselves over time in exactly the way that is conducive with what you see in the world, right? Like really simple shit, like, yeah, so like in terms of like the problems of the world and how like they're not really that hard. Simple things like what if we just did worker co-ops? What if a company had to be owned by its employees? What if the people who work at a factory had to be the only people with a stake, or not even necessarily the only people, but had to have the controlling stake in the operation as long as they were working there, right? That's the fundamentals of how a corporation works. That seems like just pretty much an explicit upgrade over the idea that a person owns all of that labor, right? Like that's just a straight up upgrade. It's fairly simplistic, not terribly complex. There's ways to try to make it more complicated by talking about like initial startup investment and stuff like that, but you can do startup investments that don't have to give you a controlling stake in a company for forever. You can just siphon off profits until you've made your profit, right? Like that's a thing you can do. That's a type of contract you can make. It's not a meaningful condemnation of the concept. There's other ways that you can make profit off of something without fundamentally owning and controlling it. And worker co-ops are a thing that already exist. They already are a thing. They work fine. They end up having difficulty in our modern economy, in part because capitalists don't want to work with them. So, because they're worker co-ops are a direct threat to the capital class. So, the capitalists would have a vested interest in making their own companies lose money as long as it hurts worker co-ops collectively, right? So, anyway, it's a whole thing. But worker co-ops are not that hard to understand. But even like other stuff is like way simpler, right? Like worker co-ops are, compared to most problems that we have, way more complicated than really simple shit like, hey, maybe we shouldn't do first past the post voting, and you should have a transferable vote, right? And there's a lot of ways you can do a transferable vote, right? Like you can do a transferable vote where the person who's voting is voting for a person, and whoever they're voting for gets to choose, if they are no longer a valid candidate, where their votes go. So that's one thing that you can do. And that's really easy to implement. That's a very easy thing to implement. And you're basically saying, I'm voting for this person with the understanding that I either want them in power or I trust them to make a decision about who they believe should be in power. And that's a legitimate form of a transferable vote. It's not the way that most people go, and it's not the most democratic in the classic sense, but it's a transferable vote that's way better than a non-transferable vote in basically every way. So we need to get food. So that's an example of a thing where it's like, even like a fairly, simplistic answer of just like, hey, if you're a third party, so if you're, say, the Green Party, and your Green Party candidate gets a shit ton of votes, the candidate can then say, okay, well, since I cannot be the winner, right, I transfer the votes that come from me to this person, and they designate the person that they want their votes to go to. That's a perfectly reasonable and very simple thing to implement, right? More complicated than that is, okay, you just put on your paper in order the people that you would like to vote for, and as contestants become non-viable, it just goes down the list until they hit a viable candidate, or you run out of people that you put on your list. Because you don't have to put, every candidate on your list, right? Like if you don't want to vote for, anyone other than like, two candidates that you have a particular affection for, you just stop putting candidates at a certain point, and then your vote doesn't go to anyone other than those two, and your vote at that point like basically becomes a non-vote, right? In the same way that if you have a first past the post system, but it's different because the person who's setting up their ballot is deliberately doing it. They're deliberately saying like, okay, these are the people that I care about. If none of these people can be it, then I don't care anymore, right? That's perfectly fine. That is honestly, I think that's a very valid way to approach politics, like legitimately. Like I think that it's valid to say, okay, I would like to vote for the candidates that I know about, that I'm comfortable voting for, but I'm not comfortable like going beyond that and trying to guess like for these other candidates who I don't know anything about, like which one of them aligns with my party interests the most or whatever, right? It's good to be able to do that, but if you don't feel comfortable doing that because you just don't have the knowledge, it's fine to say this is where my vote ends. It's also fine to say like I don't have enough faith in the person that I have enough faith in their ability to do the job that I'm hiring them to do. I don't have faith that they are going to pick a different person that I would be comfortable with being in charge if they're not the candidate, which I think is weird. Like for something like a political office, that's weird, but I can conceptually understand that. So like I can see why people would have a preference for the ability to select each individually, and you could do a mixture of the two systems if you wanted. But anyway, the point is that all these kinds of systems have downsides, and it's very complicated and this, that, or the other thing. But what isn't complicated actually is all of these systems are explicitly more democratic than first past the post systems. First past the post systems are demonstrably anti-democratic, and they consolidate power in ways that are very dangerous for a lot of different reasons, and you end up with increasingly you end up with parties that increasingly don't represent anybody in particular. Like if you look at the Republican Party today and you look at the Democratic Party today, neither of those parties is really representing like anybody. Like none of them have like a particular, like you can't like point at like, oh yeah, this is the people that agree with like the Republican Party, because nobody does. Right? Nobody agrees with what the Democrats have to say. Nobody agrees with what the Republicans have to say. They're extraordinarily unpopular, but because they're the only two options, it doesn't matter. And like anyone who comes on the scene and says, oh yeah, I'm the third option, is fundamentally just a spoiler. Like they're not going to accomplish anything because the belief that either the Democrats or the Republicans actually give a shit about being elected is a mistake. They don't. They don't actually care that much about being elected. They care about making money in politics. It's their job. And they make money regardless of whether they win the election or not. Because they don't make their money from actually holding the position. They make it from lobbyists and from donors and all the other mechanisms of corruption that are inherent to the system. I'm probably going to die here, because I think I'm getting hit by the boss as well. So anyway, so like people who say, oh, well, if you vote for a third party, you'll scare the Democrats into doing the right thing. Wrong. They don't care if they win or not. They don't actually give a shit if they win the election or not. So you're not going to scare them by voting for somebody else. You're just going to, or like not voting or whatever. They don't actually care. They claim to care, but they really don't. They don't have a real strong interest in winning individual elections. And this is particularly relevant because of the fact that they don't have to face the consequences of what happens when they lose. Right? They're not the ones. I mean, they will be eventually. We're getting to the point where like Democratic politicians are in way more danger than they realize they are. But like at the end of the day, like, you know, if the Republicans do everything that they want to do, if they make, as an example, if they make abortion illegal throughout the entire country, everyone who's, you know, a senator can just leave to get an abortion. They don't have to stay in America. They're not affected by that in the same way that, you know, the general public is. They don't have to worry about the consequences of Republican rule unless the Republicans go full Nazi and just have them all executed, which is something that seems likely in the near future. Anyway, but the basic gist of what I'm trying to say is that despite the fact that the problems that we face have been around for a long time, the problems that we face aren't as complicated as they might seem at first, and are definitely not as complicated as someone like Nancy Pelosi is going to pretend that they are. The problems that we face are fairly simple problems of corruption of the system itself, where the system itself is like, okay, well, what's the problem that we have with the Supreme Court right now, right? The Supreme Court is just making laws now. They're just writing new law because the intention of the Supreme Court, according to the Supreme Court 150 years ago when they gave themselves this power, because yes, the Supreme Court gave themselves this power, nobody else did, is to interpret the laws that other people have written. But the laws that make it so that the new interpretation that the president is immune to criminal prosecution for, and not just immune, is immune to having anybody investigate the things that they are saying as part of their, like, that any of their, like, official conduct implies that they might have done even, like, privately illegal stuff being illegal. Like, that whole dynamic, that, like, really wild shit that they came up with, it's not based in anything. There's no legal basis for it. They just kind of made it up, which is a massive escalation of the power that they had a week ago. I don't believe that there's ever been a case where the Supreme Court has so blatantly just, like, made up new law, right? Where it's like, okay, you know, you're interpreting this like statement weirdly, sure, right? Like you're willfully misinterpreting what is written here, maybe, right? But it's based in something. And as far as I can tell, the basis of the president isn't able to be, like, criminally in violation or whatever, which it was very, again, like, it goes beyond just, like, you can't arrest the president and into if the president as part of their State of the Union address, which is an official act of the president, unambiguously, says, hey, you know, a couple years back, I stabbed, you know, Fred Wilson 33 times in the chest and left his body out at this location. If the FBI checks, they're in violation. Because the agencies, the law enforcement agencies and things like that, aren't allowed to check. They're not allowed to investigate criminal behavior based off of official acts of the president. It's that bad. It is fucking nuts what has been put into place. And importantly, there's no like basis for it, right? And the reason that's important is just because it's like it indicates that the Supreme Court is really, really out of control in a way they've never been before. Ignoring the severity of what they said, the way that they came to the conclusion was also so insane that like they're fully just like a rogue entity at this point, right? There's no like interpretation that they're not a rogue entity at this point. And the reason that the Supreme Court can do that is because the system is broken and we have grand wizards who can just decide what our laws are, who are unelected and serve for life. With absolutely no oversight, with no rules about like how they can take bribes or do this, that, or the other thing. There's like no rules governing their behavior and no oversight from anybody. And that's why they are what they are now, right? Like the system created this. That's what the consequence was always going to be of creating an institution like that. Eventually, is that you're going to put people in that institution who are going to use it to do the maximum of what it can do, which is just say whatever they want and have it be true, right? This is now true because I said it. And so it's not like, you know, oh, these bad apples have, you know, undermined the system. It's like, oh no, this system was designed in a way that you will inevitably get people into it that will cause these kinds of problems, right? Because that's just, inevitably you're going to have everybody's going to be in that position at some point. And the reason that that's nice is because it's like, oh, well, then that just means that the solution is that we just need to reform the court system, right? Like, if we reform the way that the Supreme Court works in such a way that it isn't like a pseudo-sovereign entity that has the ability to just arbitrarily decide what the laws are of the land, if we just do that, then the fact that we have shitty people in that court doesn't mean that they can do this kind of stuff, right? And that's kind of how the like problems of the world can be solved. Is just like, oh, if we just fix the systems, then the systems can't be exploited in the ways that they're currently being exploited to do the kinds of damage that they're doing. And that is very promising to me. Just on a fundamental level, the fact that it's like, these are not cleverly designed systems where, like, it takes a lot of work to figure out how to undermine them. These systems have no safeguards at all. There's no oversight. And they're just kind of doing what they've always been doing. They're just doing them, you know, slightly more extreme now. Because of the current thing. But this is fundamentally what the system was designed to do. And realizing that is nice because, again, like, it's really complicated to try to figure out, like, oh, okay, if any system that you create can be immediately undermined by bad actors looking to use it to their advantage, then fixing the world's problems becomes very difficult because now all of a sudden you have to figure out how to prevent any bad people from ever getting anywhere, right? Before they've done anything bad, because once they've done something bad, they'll be able to undermine the systems in order to make it so that they can keep doing bad things. So if you believe that any system is fundamentally easily corruptible, which is basically the position that, you know, the Democratic Party has, as well as various others, if you believe something like that, then the problems become very complicated and largely intractable. If you believe that the problem is, oh, well, if we just, you know, made it so that votes were transferable, like, it would fix a lot of the problems in our system that people are constantly complaining about, that nobody likes, and which are, well, not nobody likes. The politicians themselves really like it. The parties like it. But which, they can't admit to liking it, right? Like, they can't admit to the fact that they like the fact that these systems are undemocratic, but they do, because the systems being undemocratic is why they're in power. People are very unlikely to dislike a system that gave them all the power in the world. You know? They're like, oh yeah, this system looks like it's working perfectly. Also, hey, Esther Kitty, perfect timing as I'm like talking about being hopeful in very scary times. Yeah, but the problems are not intractable. They're not, you know, things that we don't know how to fix. You know, lots of very smart people have talked about a lot of the problems that have happened. And honestly, a lot of dumb people have talked about the problems that have happened in fairly intelligent ways, because it turns out that the problems are actually, like, not that complicated if you aren't, like, ideologically predisposed to ignore their problems. So, you know, unless you've been trained from a young age to ignore these problems, they're very easy to see. Which is part of why Gen Z is the way that it is. Millennials, to a large degree, grew up with buy-in to a lot of the systems that we have, thinking that the systems were working great. I'm actually going to reload because I'm going to run into problems here continuously, and I'm going to go ahead and just recast Hour of Power before we go in, because I think that was Hour of Power, right? That was the haste wearing off? 1 day and 3 hours. I thought that lasted longer. I thought that was like up to 2 days now, but I'm probably wrong. No wonder. Anyway, good things can happen. Good things can happen. And they can happen very quickly because of the fact that it doesn't really take a genius to see the problems with our systems. And not all, some of the problems are harder than others, right? But it doesn't take a genius to see them. It just takes someone who's got their eyes open and isn't coming from ideological preconceptions. I consider myself a pretty smart guy. I didn't really approach leftism much until I was in my 30s. Not because I'm dumb, just because I was never given any information in my fundamental, like, upbringing that gave me the idea that the leftists had any shit together or had any idea what the fuck they were doing. And I will say, this is still true of leftists. They still have no fucking idea what they're doing, and they're still mostly idiots. This is true to this day. But the key is that while they are a bunch of idiots, just like everybody else, they're a bunch of idiots who happen to have stumbled on one correct thing. Oh, shit! We have a save point! Okay, so coming in through this entrance, clutch. Okay, so we can now actually save our progress. That's going to help us a lot. So this is an empty room. Torchlight. Okay. I probably didn't need to save that early, but by saving that early, I'm ensuring that we're not ending up with a huge amount of RNG here with, like, who shows up in these areas. I think that there might be an ambush in this room.
That's no good.
We do have the spirit whip, right? Yeah. Okay, let's go over here. Weren't there way more enemies in here? I thought there were a bunch of enemies in the bottom of this. Weren't there a bunch of enemies in this room? Where is everybody? The corners here are really bad for me. Maybe I should do some kiting first. I think kiting might be... Yeah, okay, I think what I should be doing, rather than trying to use corners, I should be actually using splitting techniques. So if I get more than 3 at a time here, I just pull out. Okay, we've got too many here, so we're just going to pull out to the next choke point. Most likely they're going to... Luckily, there aren't that many really strong. Shit, I went the wrong way. Ooh, this is a big deal. We might be okay. There's not that many of them, so I can probably run by them. So we're gonna run by. Okay. And luckily, they actually didn't split in as much as I had expected them to. I expected more of these to break through. We're all good. Okay, we cleared these out.
That's no good. That's no good.
We don't need this.
Okay. So, we're back in the green. We're going to try to clear through all this shit. Oh, fuck. Okay, we're fine. Yep. It's part of the whole vibe, right? We have to go with really like old school visualization techniques. Yeah, go full 90s. Exactly. Get that retro aesthetic, that was what I was thinking of. Gotta get the retro aesthetic fully implemented. Okay, luckily, this dungeon is probably not going to be too hard because we can just do this. Get that gack.
Got it.
It is funny how slime never goes out of style. Or at least not for long.
Got him.
Because slime became a whole, like, YouTube thing, right? As well. Like, there was so much, like, slime-based content on Nickelodeon for a very long time. And it back. It back. Ooh, so shiny. Oh, I don't want to open this one. I think there's a bunch of enemies in there that I don't want to lure to my location. Is there a door that's right there that they're gonna... Oh, yeah, opening that was trouble for me, actually. Let's see. No, there's a door here. Okay. Well, that's actually fine. So we open this. We can just lure them here pretty comfortably. And hopefully they don't just walk right by the choke point and murder us all. If they do, then that's life. That's life. You know, shit happens. Alright. So, we've cleared out... We've actually cleared out the majority of the zone already, haven't we? Are we almost done? We did the rogue cave. I didn't check whether I can teleport back to Harmondale. Whoops. It's probably fine. We can probably teleport back. I know, right? We can probably teleport. If we can't teleport back to Harmondale, I will just walk there. I'm not going to reload back to my Harmondale save just for that. It's the kind of thing that I might do on, like, a vanilla run, but I'm not going to do it this late into this run. The minimum travel thing is not the fundamental focus of the run. The goal of that is to ensure that I'm approaching dungeons that are hard. And goddamn, is it hot right now? I just realized how sweaty I am. I've been sitting here for so many hours, by which I mean 2 hours, 48 minutes. I've been sitting here for so long, just like steeped in sweat. And I just now noticed it. And I just now noticed that it's like, oh yeah, I've been feeling this way this entire time. How hot is it outside? Is it a problem with the way that I'm running my AC? Or is the problem with the outside being that hot? When the Northern Hemisphere was like cooking the last several times, honestly, we actually had particularly low temperatures here, but it is not cool right now by any stretch of the imagination. I don't remember if that's a teleporter or something. Don't worry about it, it's fine. That was all intentional. That was exactly what I intended to do. I didn't forget that I hadn't gotten a good view into the zone. That's not what happened. I just was like, yeah, I can definitely make this run. No problem. All good. I think I don't have the weather app. Let me take a look at what temperature is. Is it over 30 degrees right now? Are you kidding me? It's 26? How is it that cold and I'm sweating this much? Alright, 1 second. I'm gonna... Let me take... What happened to you? I'm putting this on high power. I don't know what the fuck has happened. My AC is on. Actually, you know what? No, it's fine. I'm not going to worry about it. Alright. My AC's on, and it's not that hot out. Now, it does say that it feels like 29. So, it's possible that the... whatever the conditions are that make it feel hotter than normal are also contributing factors into making your house more of a heater than it normally would be, right? Like the heat level in a house ends up like either being or at least very much feeling way higher than it actually is. I don't really know. Either way, I'm legitimately shocked. Because that 26 is pretty cool for Singapore. Indeed. Look. Oh shit, that's an exploding fire rat. Okay, let's move. Whoop. Okay, the exploding fire rat does have a ranged attack, but it's not going to use it that regularly, I don't think. So, oh god, there's two? There's an exploding fire rat and a leech fire rat. Ooh, that's a bad combo on enemies that have the ability to do what they're doing to me right now. Ooh, boy. They have ranged attacks, so this is a very sizable concern. I need to basically be able to kill them without taking damage from other shit, but I don't know how I would do that. If I move to... I might be able to get some of the ones in the back to leak. That didn't help me at all. I don't care about these. These are not relevant to my interests. I only care about the rats because the rats have range attacks. Yeah, all the systems that I would use to regulate my internal temperatures are also tied to my ability to live stream. Wait, is the reason that it feels so fucking hot because I've put a thing behind my computer? Okay, let's take a look. I'm going to check a couple of things. So first of all, these are going straight forward, so it's not that. That's not the issue. The issue isn't that. The issue might be I put the ottoman like not so close to the computer that it's like going to make the computer overheat, but like it creates sort of like a barrier eventually, right? So it's like a pseudo barrier where like I'm basically creating like a smaller subsection of my living room that me and the computer are both in. So I wonder if it's just the heat coming off of the computer raising the ambient temperature in here a couple of degrees. It could also be that because I'm try-harding so much, I'm just getting sweaty.
Got him.
Let's go with that interpretation. That's the interpretation. It's not that I'm feeling hot, it's just that I'm sweaty. That's it. We figured it out. We have an answer. It's a coherent explanation. It totally works. Linguistically, if not physically.
Let's take it.
Alright. We're going to walk away for a second. By a second, I mean quite a lot of seconds. And... Leech. Oh god, the exploder's here too now? Oh boy. The exploder was not in the room just now, I don't think, so... Is this the leecher? Yes. Okay, I'm gonna go now. I'm gonna try to burn through this before things get too out of control. And why... What just happened? Is it 3? It's 3 o'clock. Why am I getting weak so quick? I have not been here long enough that I feel like I should be getting weak.